Hey, boy, do I have a lot to share with you today. So I'm not going to talk very long, yay! But I really am so excited to share this. This is information that I just came upon. No one shared it with me. This is how I work. I just find things. I keep clicking and following, and boy, it's amazing what you can come up with when you do it this way. So let's get going because there's a lot to share. So I am going to. Okay, so let's look at this. This was just something that I came upon again that was just fascinating to me. In April 1998, President Bill Clinton read the Richard Preston novel The Cobra Event, a fiction book about a mad scientist spreading a virus throughout New York City. As a result, Clinton held a meeting with scientists and cabinet officials to discuss the threat of bioterrorism. He was so impressed that he asked the experts to meet with senior level aides at the Department of Defense and in the Department of Health and Human Services. At that time, the government had stockpiles of medications for military personnel, but did not have them for civilians. Shortly after, the Washington Post wrote that Clinton surprised many in Washington at how fast he and his National Security Council had moved to change that. By October, Clinton signed into law a new budget of $51 million for pharmaceutical and vaccine stockpiling to be carried out by the CDC. Now that's really interesting. You know, you read something in a book, sounded good, like, good idea. Maybe it applies to us right now. Maybe there was some preparation. I'm just putting it out there, but you make up your own mind. All right, so in 2000, there was the Public Health and Improvement Act that was signed into law. And again, this was during Clinton regime as well. And it basically is in preparation of emerging threats to public health. And I'm not going to go into this much more because I'm going to do a whole nother video on this. This is a lot of information, and I really want to get to the premier piece to talk about today. In 2002, Bush signed or expanded it to be even more inclusive, and renamed it as Public Health Security and Bioterrorism Preparedness and Response Act of 2002. All right, so this is what I want to show you. This is called Preparing for a Pandemic Influenza, and it's a primer for governors and senior state officials. Now, I have gone through and I've already highlighted areas so that I could cover it easily. But again, there is a National Governors Association founded in 1908, which all governors work through. And that sounds like a good thing. And it was 2006 that this was put out. Pandemic influenza. All righty. Okay, so if you go over here, this offers an overview of these and other issues governors and state officials must consider as they develop plans to respond to pandemic influenza or other disease outbreaks. This document focuses on state policies and responsibilities and is intended to complement the federal guidance issued by the White House Homeland Security Council, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Homeland Security. So this is in hand with the federal government. And it goes on to say how this got into being. Again, it ties in with the other documents that I'm going to do at another time. All right. Once a pandemic happens, we will divide forever the progress of our nation as a pre-pandemic and a post-pandemic. I can see that. Now, this is what is interesting. There are three uh, conditions that must be met before it can be classified as a pandemic. A new flu virus must emerge from the animal reservoirs that have produced and harbored such viruses, one that has never infected human beings, and therefore one for which no person has developed antibodies. Check. The virus has to make humans sick. Most do not. Check. It must be able to spread efficiently through coughing, sneezing, or a handshake. Check. Telling you guys, this is really interesting stuff. So the avian flu did not meet all of these conditions. So if you go up here, the effects of a pandemic, and I say pandemic, maybe that's not a slip of word there, of a pandemic flu will be broad, deep, and simultaneous, and states must focus resources to ensure continuation of essential services. That's what we're experiencing right now, okay? And it's worldwide. So the whole idea is to study how this affects everyone. Medical response capability in a pandemic will be limited, strained, and potentially depleted during a pandemic, and other measures will be needed to control the spread of the disease. Antiviral drugs may or may not prove effective. We've got, and it goes on further a little bit later to talk about antivirals. Vaccines likely will be developed. Oh, but look at this. Medical treatment also will be very limited, such as ventilators. Wow, sounds like a play-by-play book here. I'm telling you, it is a play-by-play book. Everything we are experiencing is all in here. So they have to restrict public gathering, limit travel, close schools, and stress personal hygienes, and more draconian measures such as isolation and quarantine may be effective only in the earliest stages. Well, that's where we are right now. Government must work closely with the private sector to ensure critical operations and services are maintained. Okay, that's happening. Except maybe not toilet paper, but that's even in here. Not toilet paper, but hoarding. A pandemic will force many key decisions to be made in a dynamic environment of shifting events, and partnerships must be built now and tested to ensure appropriate and rapid action. The federal government and the private sector will need to test and evaluate pandemic flu plans through periodic exercises that expose gaps and build relationships among and across all levels of government and institutions. The ability is to make good decisions on the fly will be as important as good planning made in advance of a pandemic. So I'm just throwing it out there that perhaps we're being tested, and to see how we react, how we work in this type of experiment. A pandemic and the required responses will be like nothing we have witnessed previously. The virus may cause a large number of disease incidents and deaths. It will cause anxiety and possibly panic among our citizens, and it will cost the nation significant resources and effort to effectively respond. And then it just goes on to say that our infrastructure pretty much we need to sustain that. So let's keep going. That's about the bird flu. I'm not going to talk about that. Okay. In a recent report, the U.S. Congressional Budget Office estimated the impact of a severe outbreak of pandemic influenza would cause a decline in U.S. GDP of 5% in the year it occurred, equivalent to $500 billion in 2004 dollars. So did a little quick math, and that is almost 700 billion in this day and time. So again, they know it will cause a lot of decrease in our GDP. State and local officials must address not just the immediate outbreak of influenza, but also the interpandemic phase and the possibility that the worst effects may occur in a second or third wave. It's all right here. It's like, are we just like in this simulation right now for everybody's benefit so they can learn how to deal with this? Are we just got left out of the memo? I'm not sure. Based on a historic review of pandemic episodes, it is likely that the initial pandemic episode or wave will last 8 to 12 weeks. That's accurate. It will be followed by a second and possibly even a third wave of disease that will occur 8 to 12 weeks after the initial wave of the disease has passed. The entire pandemic could take over a year to complete the 3 phases. During each interpandemic phase, there will be an opportunity to recover and prepare for a future outbreak, but this will represent a time of considerable stress for the public and an exhausted responder community. Is this not what we've been told? After a pandemic wave is over, it can be expected that many people have lost friends or relatives, suffer from fatigue, or have financial losses as a result of the interruption of business. State governments or other state or local authorities will need to address these concerns while also prepping to respond to the next phase or wave of disease. Now, again, this makes total sense because the White House it's left it up to the governors. I swear this is it's all right here. So again, the role of the governor and lead state officials in managing a pandemic. It talks about things that they need to do to prepare. And the interesting thing is they talk about encompassing both the horizontal and the vertical domains. And what that means is within the governors of each state, they have to work together as well as working up to work with the federal government and agencies that are involved. But look at this. It requires the leveraging of all instruments of national power and coordinated action by all segments of government and society. As chief executive of the state, the governor is uniquely positioned to provide the nexus for this horizontal and vertical integration. So it goes on to talk about identifying the sectors that are the most vulnerable during a pandemic and how we could work to mitigate effects. Like, for example, states with a significant service-based economy or tourism. New York would be great for that, wouldn't it? That would be in California. Those both are awesome places to test this out. Testing and assessing plans that allow staff to provide critical capability while reducing pandemic spread. Oh my goodness, look here, including working from home or telecommuting. And many states may not have sufficient bandwidth. That's again, oh boy, perfect time to roll out 5G, wouldn't you think? Addressing the problems of conducting state business and developing new requirements for conducting state business, including emergency measures when travel, meeting, and social contact are limited to prevent the spread of disease. Assessing how governors can use, explain, and enforce emergency powers against a background of public unease and possibly panic. So all the parts are here, folks. We are being studied on how we react, how then they can react, what needs to be done differently. Maybe there are things they left out. I love this part, though. It even defines how to communicate to us. It's not very empowering, but here we go. These tools or message maps distill information into easily understood messages written at a 6th grade reading level. Messages are presented in 3 short sentences that convey 3 key messages in 27 words. The approach is based on surveys showing that lead or front page media and broadcast stories usually convey only 3 key messages, usually in less than 9 seconds for broadcast media or 27 words for print. Each primary message has 3 supporting messages that can be used when and where appropriate to provide context for the issue being mapped. So if you think about this, what are some possibilities? Social distancing, that might be one. Wearing a mask. I mean, those are just some examples. It's just here. It's just here. You guys can figure it out. I don't want to treat you like you're dumb because I don't believe in that. But obviously, somebody's done a lot of research on how we work. And I don't honestly appreciate that being used in this context. All right, here we go. Okay, so it's not so much the number of cases and deaths, but from an uncoordinated efforts of the general public to avoid becoming infected. So it's our fault. The likely result would be both a demand shock for service sectors such as tourism and mass travel. We can't go anywhere, right? And a supply shock like absenteeism, disruption of production processes, and shifts to more costly procedures. In addition, emergency measures such as quarantines and restrictions on travel and trade could add to the economic disruption and increase its costs. That's been happening. All right. Then it talks about how we react. It's like, we don't like it, and rightfully so. We may have negative behaviors like hoarding. I don't think they knew toilet paper, but hoarding they expected. So again, that was an interesting maybe phenomenon for them to watch. Okay, here is another aspect. State laws pertaining to movement, activity restrictions, or quarantine may need to be used to reduce the spread of disease. We're experiencing that. However, the differences between state laws make regional action a more difficult proposition because each state is different. In the case of the risk from a possible pandemic influenza, concerns about differences between state laws led to federal action that could be used to augment state law and help ensure coordination. Again, working together with that horizontal as well as vertical language that they used before. I'm going to talk about the Executive Order 13295 in another video. It extends the federal quarantine regulations to cover influenza. That was done by Obama. I believe there was something in him that Obama extended the federal quarantine regulations, so that might not be quite correct on that. Okay, let's see, and then we have these are just possible local actions: decisions on closure of schools, limits on use of practices on mass transit, public transport systems, restrictions on public gatherings, etc., may be determined by state and local officials and supported by local or state policies and law. There it talks about performing training exercises. I just think we're in the middle of it. Now, I'm not saying that this isn't real. I'm not. But I do believe that we are being used to learn how, when if they were to really roll out something even more devastating as waves hit, then they know how to work with us. That's just my theory. All right. So promote self-reliance. Encourage and invest in increased food storage in pantries. basically at first they said, just do it like it would be a bad storm, right? That's what they said. That's in here. Stockpile equipment supplies, which may be in short supply, such as masks, ventilators, hand sanitizers, medications. Provide essential services. Quarantine or social distancing. Federal agreements with private companies regarding interstate commerce, waiver of primary home business foreclosures, waiver of health insurance limitations, on amount of medications, on and on. So they talk about how to be self-reliant, and they've talked to us about that. Good hygiene. Oh, that might have been one of the other three messages that they promoted. Washing your hands. Prepare emergency messages such as public service announcements. So this is talking on in the future about how to work with getting when we get back to work. And then also during this time, how do we maintain? We have to care for other people who might be ill. We have to look after our kids. Many of us feel like we need to stay home because we've been told to. And then okay. All right. So here again, this talks about us being able to trust them, and how to garner that trust and keep it. So trust is particularly important when there is inadequate time or information to assess which action should be taken, or when the perceived threat of an immediate hazard complicates decision making for the individual. Communicating risks entails confronting important uncertainties, some of which are irreducible. Assessment of risks is determined not by facts, but by emotions. This really bothers me because that's how we get manipulated, is through our emotions. We're scared. We're, we don't know what to do. We don't know what's real. And then that's how we get manipulated. It's just one of my big pet peeves. I just don't think we need to have this type of government where we use our public, even as a study. We need to let people know. We need to let people know. If this is a study, we need to let people know, because there are lives lost that are collateral to this because people didn't know. And I just have a huge problem with that. You should too. Risk is a combination of probability of something happening, a feeling of the dreadfulness of the event, and a context for the event. There is little evidence that knowledge of risk, as embodied in professional assessments, influences the way in which the general public perceives and responds to risks and dangers. So, again, it's through our emotions versus even if we knew what the risk was, our emotions are going to outweigh. Fear disturbs the balance between rational and irrational behavior. No joke. Mass communication is meditated or filtered in different ways. That's true. And the public extracts the gist of any information, not the detail, to make decisions. Now, folks, you need to pay attention to this last one. This is they're telling us right here, this is how they know we work. This is how we make decisions. We don't want to look at the details. We just want the gist. Now, I can tell you, in running for office, this is totally accurate. Very few people want to research who I am or what I stand for. Very few want to know who I am as a person. They just want me to tell them, well, what do you stand for? What are your stances? And I'm like, go do it yourself, because I don't want to be telling you. You need to find out for yourself. That's why I don't do it that way, is because I don't want to empower that very last blurb. Ugh. Okay. It's just talking about how to prepare. We really do need to look at how we work and how we make our decisions. The most important decisions, like electing a president, choosing our Congress, is based on what we are told as promises. And who represents our party. That tells us nothing. What's more important is, who is this person? How are you gonna act once you get into office? Are you going to join the corruption train? Are you going to be manipulated by money? Are you going to stand up for the people? Who are you? But no. It's more important to elect our party in, because that party has to dominate a certain environment, whether it be Congress or our Superior Court judges or our president. It's insane. And I implore each and every one of you who are listening today to please really think about what you're doing, because you are not helping the situation if you keep voting the way that everybody always has been. All right, enough there. A pandemic influenza could be a devastating event. Precautions can be taken to lessen the effects. Here we go: social distancing, good hygiene, use of antiviral drugs if available, and the use of vaccines. Again, it's all play by play. This is what we're experiencing. They're developing antiviral drugs and vaccines are being fast tracked. Antiviral medication will be in short supply. And this is interesting, because I think that even though they talk about antivirals, if we really needed them, I think that because they would be in short supply, that would help a vaccine come on the scene earlier. Vaccines may not be available until many months after the pandemic begins, which again is a fast track, because it usually takes years to do proper studies. Individuals may be asked to stay home for extended periods of time. Yes, all these are true. What the public can do now: oh boy, get a flu shot. Even though the flu mutates constantly, and they can't know what's going to be the flavor of this year's flu cocktail, get one. The flu vaccine will not protect you from the pandemic, but it'll keep you from getting normal flu, and thus lessen the burden on the healthcare system. I'm sorry, that's just insane. Begin stockpiling some food and supplies. Again, that was in the beginning. The message was like up to a week. Listen to the media for government advisories. Listen to the media. Now, we all know that the media is bought, and we know that they are delivering messages that aren't, most of the time, represent an ulterior motive. So listen to them anyway. Stay home when sick. Practice good hygiene. Again, these three, see, 3, less than 3. Now this one has more, but you can get the gist of it. All right. Or maybe don't get the gist of it. We just talked about that. Read further. Okay, let's see. Represents the end of the world or would be countered readily by a new vaccine. Okay, but look at this. In truth, we cannot predict where'd it go? The what? The what? I would say the outcome. They don't know. They can't predict what each flu season is going to involve, like I just said. So generally, we want information from people that we recognize as authoritative. Really? Well, wow, that's so easy to do then with all the experts that we have. And I want to say a couple of things about experts. I do not like the word. I don't. All it means is that you know a lot in a particular subject. That's all. But it doesn't mean that you have the right as an expert to tell people how to make their decisions. An expert is an excellent source in a legal case, for example, where you need someone giving a side of a case or information that will help someone make a decision. At least you still have the jury in that case making a decision. But the way that we use experts in our world right now is that they know it all. And they know it so much. They know how that it's going to affect my life and somebody down the road life and somebody across the world's life, and it's not true. So please update your definition of an expert. They just know a lot. They've studied, they might have a lot of credentials after their name, but it does not give them authoritative rule over you. It's different. You have to make your own decision. Let's see. Now, this is interesting. The federal government successfully used a public engagement project to help determine priorities for allocating scarce influenza vaccines during a pandemic. Wait, what? They've already done this? They've already tested this? The public engagement pilot project on pandemic influenza involved groups of citizens selected from communities in Georgia, Massachusetts, Nebraska, and Oregon, and a group of representatives of organizations with a role in vaccine production and distribution. Oh, goodness, I can't imagine who those are. The group's recommendations about the priorities the government should use in rationing scarce vaccines are reflected. So, guys, this scares me. So, what if vaccines are scarce and only certain groups of people can have access to them? That's not a very good sign. More research is needed to learn how to do this well, which is basically swaying the public. Health officials are advised to invest in targeted and widely dispersed communications in order to sway as many undecided as possible to the cause of influenza prevention and control. So again, no choice there. They've got a MO. So that all of us will be complacent and just do what we're told. In a situation where high risk and fear of infection are likely, effective public risk communication will enhance people's willingness and ability to cope with risk, to bear anxiety, to follow instructions, to help their neighbors, and to recover when the crisis is over. Again, I do not like the idea of this. It could be used in a very dark manner. The transition in the mind of the public from being victims to playing their part as responders will enhance the response greatly and help to regain a normal basis for operations in our communities. Now, do we not already have that where we're asking our neighbors to spy and tell on everybody that isn't doing what they're supposed to do? And that makes them feel like they're doing a good thing. That expectation, however, unwarranted, will be fueled by an aggressive media and a plethora of self-promoting experts, oh my goodness, who will remind everyone that this is something the authorities could have and should have avoided. It will be imperative to counter these claims and manage expectations in a public not used to hearing about self-reliance in the face of health or medical crisis. That's happening now, is it not? They should have known. How come the World Health Organization didn't act? How come Trump didn't do that? How come it's all planned? This is okay. I'm not going to say it. Here we are again, planning documents that acknowledge the value of vaccines and antiviral. There are probably, and I'm going to do another video right now. There's probably another 150 bills introduced from the first of the year until now that have to do with vaccines and COVID. 150. Don't tell me this isn't all a part of the plan. The keys to the successful use of vaccines will be the development of flexible plans for use in defining priority groups who will be vaccinated. Again, they start saying is, maybe for the ones who are maybe immunocompromised. I don't think they should be picking and choosing. States should conduct assessments of their priorities, examine the option for using limited vaccine supplies, and publish lists of key personnel that would be the first recipients of any vaccine supply. So we got to keep alive our frontline people, our government, and, there's a pecking order. The plans must include effective, transparent communication about why these groups have been selected and given priority. For large sections of the public, there must be coherent explanations of why they are excluded, limited number of doses, and the additional precautions those who are excluded can take to increase their level of protection against the disease. Watch it. This is going to happen. State officials should continue to advocate and enhance discussions of the value of the routine vaccination against this threat. Again, pushing vaccination. There are other ways that we can. What happened to hand washing? What happened to acting like this is just like a long snow day or storm? In the event of a pandemic episode, this familiarity with vaccine guidance, including the designation of high-risk groups, will provide a good starting point for the use in vaccines. Good idea, guys. These discussions should include a knowledgeable medical expert, to ensure a possibly nervous public fully understands the differences between these diseases and the required response. It's all a manipulation. They use people with degrees and quote unquote expertise to manipulate people into doing what they want. Now, I know a lot of you guys know this already, but we really, again, you got to update your picture of what an expert is. It is no one special. And we put people up on pedestals because of their credentials. A medical doctor is more believable than, for example, someone like myself who's a chiropractor, and we've had the same core courses. I've even had more hours in some courses than they have. But medical doctors are believable. It's all about our perception. The use of FDA-licensed antiviral medicines with proven use over several years will minimize many of the concerns raised by newly created vaccines. Okay, and it just goes on to talk about how we can get the public to really buy into taking the vaccines and antivirals, and to support how there are going to be certain segments of our populace that are going to be head of the line, and there are going to be others that are at the back. All right. This talks about a federal stockpile of medications. This is probably outdated, but this is what I would imagine the national stockpile is. And then again, they're coordinating contracts, already coordinating business. If you can't see that our health is for sale, you're blind. Everything's for sale. We are a market. That's all we are. We are a market. Transmission of infections such as pandemic influenza requires 3 elements: a source of infecting virus, a susceptible host person, and means of transmission for the virus to move or to be acquired by a susceptible host. A contagious individual coughing or sneezing near a susceptible host. Okay. Preventing transmission can be accomplished by protecting the susceptible host from coming in contact with the virus by eliminating the source of infection, blah, blah, blah. There is growing interest in implementing non-medical intervention that would increase basic. Why don't we just do that? We don't have to have the vaccines. Let's just say, okay, we'll do this. And it goes into, again, more of what we're experiencing. This is long. I'm sorry, we're almost done. But again, it talks about the order that they should close things: schools, government offices, transportation, office, museums, okay? Then shopping malls, all of these under general emergency powers or special powers granted. So that's why this has been deemed a pandemic. It's an emergency and they can do all this. Whew, I'm sorry, I get really passionate about this. We can't keep doing this. We just cannot. So then they talk about how it may impact civil liberties, represent political, legal, and ethical lightning rods. Stringent quarantine measures may be difficult to enforce for any extended period of time. Again, we are experiencing that with the marches on our capitals and people saying this is enough. And they're not dumb. We know something's going on. So this talking about how we have to work together. We have to engage the public as a partner. We are not partners. We are not being treated as partners. We are not. So don't fool yourself. Let's see. Again, it talks about, I'm going to let you guys read this a little bit more on your own, but you can see how they talk about how to make the public a partner, which again is a misnomer. It's just a lie. Sometimes we need incentives to help our public to be a partner. We might have to do schoolwork through online courses. They may also need to institute policies that encourage telecommuting. I love this. The use of legal instruments should be the weapon of last resort. As has been observed on more than one occasion, the law is a poor enforcer of public behavior. In times of duress, the use of the law can be a potent catalyst for public backlash. You betcha. So it is taking the federal government out. There, if this were to get worse, the federal government's going to have their own pot to stir. This is why they have relied everything or relinquished everything to governors. Okay. Action states will be expected to coordinate include vaccine and antiviral distribution, food supply and distribution, shelter, positioning and distribution of healthcare providers, decisions on closings. We've already experienced that. Okay, and then the conclusion. All right, so that's it. So we've got, hold on, let me get back to you. Here I am. You've got all the information there. You can totally see that something's going on and we are a part of this. It's not something that we agreed to. I don't know if those of you out there who have a legal background can let this help you prepare a case. This is not okay. And I've got more to share, but this is long enough. So again, thank you for staying with this. I hope you will stop and take this and digest it and really see what's going on, because this isn't a coincidence. It's just too right there. It's too right there. And the setup to then manufacture antivirals and vaccines is the whole focus. I don't want to live in that kind of world. I hope you don't either. And if you don't, then consider supporting me in getting into office, because this kind of shenanigans won't happen. Not at all. So I wish you a wonderful day, and I will talk with you again soon. Bye.